Hey yo, it's Vondo. Before you lose your marbles, have an aneurysm about the thumbnail, take a deep breath. It's just a pinch of clickbait and a little bit of search engine optimization. But it still rings true, and Anita and SJW'S did not ruin video games, and in today's video I'll go over some of the actual culprits that are currently ruining games. I will also offer some personal commentary and hot takes on other topics within the gaming sphere, and I'll be going over a few games specifically. Games like Cyberpunk 2077, The Last of Us 2, and a game getting its own video, 6 Days in Fallujah. To do this, I divided this video within 5 sections/chapters, which consist of Anita, corporate interests, the negatives of improved hardware, political themes in games, and our final chapter will tie in the review cycle, influencers marketing, and the toxicity of gaming culture online. With the groundwork laid out, kick back, grab a snack, and get comfy because you're in for a long one. There will be a bevy of information within the description, so be sure to check that out. But without further ado, let's dive into our first chapter on the most infamous woman on the web, the one and only Anita, aka Feminist Frequency. What's a good story without a villain? Chapter 1. Anita. So what, I defended Anita in the intro of this video. That does not mean I'm a fan of her content. I actually dislike most of her content. Granted, she did have great production value at the time in 2013, and she has a couple of quality takes even though they are pretty basic, such as video games can be sexist and they lack representation. Wow, such earth-shattering opinions. I can't believe it. But I can easily attest to how these games lack representation, and that's due to that selection of black hairstyles and how they are portrayed, because they are pretty bad. Like, forget talking about different textures like 4A, 4B, and 4C. These games barely have a handle on run-of-the-mill taper, and you got a better chance of catching and riding a unicorn than seeing a successful drop fade or burst fade in these video games. These games also struggle to still tell the difference between grades, twists, and mods. So that is how that lacking representation. Granted, they have improved without recent years, so at least progress is being made, but that's all I got when it comes to black hairstyles in these games. Even 2K gets this stuff wrong. This is not locks. This is a loose curly hair puff. You can tell by the texture of the hair how it's loose, it's curly. This is the correct example now. Long length, hair is locked together. They even have rubber bands. Another good example, medium length, hair is still locked together. And this is incorrect. These are box braids. You can tell by the texture, you can tell by the way the hair is parted. And the same goes for the 2-strand twist. Hair is twisted together. Look at the texture, look how it's parted. With that brief tangent on black hairstyles of video games out the way, I never understood the amount of vitriol that Anita received for her content. And yes, I'm well aware she had a truckload of terrible takes. She would misrepresent points in the video game criticisms. In those videos, she even had factually incorrect information. That does not make her a bad person. That does not make her an evil person by any means, or warrant her being public enemy #1 on the internet, because there's been other figureheads and just personalities in the gaming sphere online that's had worse conduct and content before and after Anita. And it never justified, the rampant harassment campaigns or the threats of violence, directed towards her that escalated to the point where her USU speaking event got canceled due to threats of a massacre involving pipe bombs and, of course, a mass shooting. And it's all for content that wasn't even worth that much engagement because, one, again, it's mediocre, it's bad, and it's pretty basic. But what should have happened when it came to her content was there was some brief discourse, a quick exchange here and there, and then you would correct any facts or incorrect information and you would move on with your day. But being that her content was so easy to dislike and there was a huge bandwagon and hate train on piling up on Anita because it was easy and it was fun to do back then, it led to over 32 million views on YouTube, monetary success, and her having a shred of relevancy almost a decade later. Because Tropes vs. Women debuted around 8 years ago in 2013. And you can honestly argue that Anita emerged the victor when it's all said and done, because again, she still has a platform and she's technically a pioneer in her field when it comes to video game criticism as a woman. So what really should happen is we don't engage with the content, she fizzles out in 7 to 8 months, and that's the end of Anita, and all is done and all is well. But no, it was popular to hate on her. She got a lot of harassment, a lot of threats of violence, and it made her, a figurehead that's still relevant to this day somehow. But I don't like her, and enough of Anita. Let's get into something that's actually harming video games, which is, a surprising one. Improved technology. yes, better hardware, better specs, lower quality video games. Very shocking to me. Let's get into that. Remember back then you would buy a game and it would just work? No day one updates, no buying extra content, no having to be online to play a single player game. It would just work. It's like new technology going one step forward and two steps back. And the new technology isn't filled with nothing but drawbacks because it has allowed from games to blossom from 2D, pixelated black and white creations to fully 3D immersive worlds that are filled to the brim with content and almost endless possibilities what these developers can do because they're just simply not as limited as they were back then with older hardware, you know, those hardware constraints. The only problem though with the new technology is these games do suffer in two departments. That is polish and that is content. And I blame this mainly on publishers and patches. The idea of patches is simply remarkable because this is a tool that grants developers the ability to essentially edit their game after release, add new content, remove content, fix glitches, all the above. That's what patches should be used for. And you know how they were used in the 7th generation of games were content updates. This was DLC, so that was paid DLC, and a few balancing updates, you know, throughout the year. They weren't as frequent because patches were expensive back then, like $40,000 to release a patch 2012 on the Xbox 360 and PS3, and technology was in its infancy, so they couldn't do a whole lot with them yet. But unfortunately, how they're actually used now in the 8th generation, how they will be used on 9th, they'll be for fixing games that should have came out later. And what's the most recent example of this, of them using a shit ton of patches to fix a game that should have came out a year or so later? Cyberpunk 2077. And why is that? One, that's because it's more profitable to just release a game that's broken and then maybe fix it up later and patch it up later and hope everything's all good. I mean, they tried that with Anthem, but that shit failed, you know, with them canning support for that game. But when it comes to Cyberpunk 2077 specifically, they have a roadmap that's going to be over the course of this year, and you know, they released it when they made that shitty apology video a couple of months ago. But yeah, we're in March 2021, they're going to be patching this game until 2022, and that's just for the single player. They may add more stuff for the single player after that, but I think they'll probably shift into the multiplayer. But even if they did that, it just shows this game wasn't ready to be released in 2020 because they have a roadmap of updates throughout the year. They don't have a next gen port, and they don't have the multiplayer, you know, announced yet, or we've seen anything or heard about that yet. But I did hear they will be coming out a year after, you know, the initial release. So it just shows that this game should have been, you know, delayed for a couple of years, so they have everything, all the content, the game actually working, and the game being, you know, playable. But they elect to use a bunch of patches to hopefully get in a good state. And if they do, well, they do. But it doesn't really matter because they already got your money. And what's the point of releasing the game in a good state when you can just patch it later? Like, why would you do that?
Money!
Or you have to try and think about how to move some initiative forward. Ask yourself this question first. Is this good for the player? Is this good for the player? Is this good for the player?
Good old Andrew Wilson. Is this good for the players? Is the answer to that question? No, you fucking bozo. It's not good for the players. You are actually the enemy of the players. The real enemy of the players. Again, let me restate this, because I already pointed out earlier how I didn't like the Sarkeesian's content, how I don't like the SJW content when it came to games in general. But in their defense, they never implemented any of these shady business practices or these, you know, greedy monetization schemes that are actively harming games today. They've never done that. They haven't ruined any video games I'm aware of. Well, fuck it. If you want to say they ruined The Last of Us 2, go ahead, because I can give you games that were ruined by a corporate greed and interest, whether that's bad management, whether that's just a shitty launch in general, whether that's a lack of content, or, you know, just the microtransactions, you know, overshadowing the game. That's what ruins games. And I got a bunch of games I can think of off the top of my head right now. You know, let's name those off, shall we? What about Mighty Number 9? Duke Nukem Forever, Batman Arkham Knight. Remember that PC port for that game? Fucking garbage. The Master Chief Collection for Halo when it first launched, again a mess. Crackdown 3. The Watch Dogs downgrade from E3, man. Fallout 76, Mass Effect Andromeda, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Is this good for the players? And over 1,000 hours of grinding for new characters, man. Get the fuck out of here. Ghost Recon Breakpoint, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5. They just had to keep milking that series into the ground. Just had to keep milking that series into the ground. And that's not the remaster that they made recently. No Man's Sky, even though that game has redeemed himself, and was still, you know, at launch. Battlefield 4 at launch. Assassin's Creed Unity. Need for Speed to Run. I had to throw that in because I like racing games, but that game was fucking garbage. And of course, Cyberpunk 2077 and Anthem when they killed a development for that game a couple of weeks ago. Lovely. As you can see, these games were run by corporate greed, monetization, pay to win, whatever. It's not SJW's. I hate to break it to you. They're not ruining games. It's not them. It's guys like Andrew Wilson. It's guys like Bobby Kotick. It's guys like Yves Guillemot. They're ruining games. The CEOs of these publishing companies, EA, Ubisoft, and Activision Blizzard. Those are the real enemies of gamers. Not the SJWs, not Anita, because they haven't done shit really. And notice how there's rarely any incompetent or bad development teams. Because really, how many bad development teams are there? Because honestly, I would just shit the blame on bad management with them having to rush a piss poor product out. Look at Cyberpunk 2077 again. But that's really all I got, man. Like, it's not the SJWs. I gotta drill this into y'all because you guys just won't get it. It's not them. Did an SJW make an online pass? Didn't think so. Did they make supply drops? Didn't think so. But now, another topic we'd like to dive into. Politics in video games. This is grown folks' business. You grown, keep watching. If you not, get the fuck out. So let's dive into video games and politics. And there has been a take that's been circulating around the last couple of years that I never really understood, and it is stop putting politics in video games. I never got this take because, well, one, video games are art, and believe it or not, there was actual discourse and arguments surrounding video games, whether or not they can be considered art. We all know that is the case. Video games are an art form, and they are considered art. And if you're well aware, you would know that art is inherently political. That doesn't mean every piece of art is political, or just don't have, you know, nice entertainment piece, or just nice piece of art to look at. But being that art is political sometimes, you shouldn't be surprised that, you know, there is political themes or political commentary in these video games. Because in all other forms of entertainment, it's there as well. It can be music, books, movies, it's still there. So it shouldn't be shocking when you see it in video games, because it's just another entertainment form, just another art form. So I don't get the whole deal with that. Another thing is, when people saying stop putting them in these games, well, they've always been there. Like, I know you guys played games like Spec Ops Online, games like Fallout, Bioshock, Grand Theft Auto, even fucking Call of Duty. There's, you know, political commentary in those games before these takes emerge. So I never really got where that came from. I'm going to assume that, you know, there's just maybe one too many colored people, one too many minorities, one too many women. And, you know, that's the issue with this take. Another reason why I don't like it though, because you saying don't put political themes in video games, it's just you limiting the creative freedom of these artists and developers, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. I like for them to push the boundaries forward and try new stuff, and if it works, it works, and doesn't, it doesn't. It's not like all games political, they're still, you know, just simple, run-of-the-mill, dumb and fun games, so I don't see the big deal with it. And my main problem though when it comes to politics of video games, it's the way that these figureheads at these publishing companies go around pussyfooting and bullshitting us when they say, well, we're making a game and it's not political or it's apolitical. And I got two great examples of this: Modern Warfare 2019 and of course 6 Days in Fallujah. Now, what both of these games did pre-release, in these interviews, have, you know, a narrative director or, you know, a publishing figurehead, they would say this game is apolitical. And my problem with that is it's the subject matter they're dealing with. See, these two games specifically are making games about literal war and war crimes. That's very fucking political. I don't know why you would think it isn't, but it is. And what 6 Days of Fallujah did, they said, well, this isn't a political game, or we're not trying to make one. I'm like, this is about an actual battle in the Iraq War. So I don't know why they be saying it's not political. And Modern Warfare said that game's not political, even though it focuses on geopolitics, counterterrorism, and I don't know, the rules of engagement. They even went and lied about a war crime the US committed and said that Russia did it, but hey, it's not a political game. I don't get that. I don't like being bullshitted. I don't like being played around. And yeah, I just think that's pretty fucking stupid that these, these figureheads would do that in the first place. I can get why they do it, because they know that some gamers will just, they start cringing and they get upset when there's, a mere mention of politics in video games, but it's always been there. And I honestly have no problem with it. Even stuff I don't like, stuff I don't agree with, like 6 Days of Fallujah, like Modern Warfare lying about war crimes. It's whatever, if you ask me. But speaking of 6 Days of Fallujah, that game is going to be fucking ass, and it's getting its own video, because it's that special. And I'll talk about the politics in that game a bit, and I'll talk about why I think that game isn't in good shape when it comes to when it actually releases, and my other concerns with that game. But let me tie up into our final chapter, and I'll wrap this video up. This will be the toxic behaviors online, and how they tie in with the marketing machines, the review process, and influencers. So with that out the way, let's get into our final chapter. The machine and toxicity online. I've been going at this for quite a while now, but there's still a few points we'd like to look into just a little bit further and wrap this video up. That being the multiplayer reviews and why they should be updated, why the review cycle is pretty busted and has been busted for a long time, marketing, influencers, and last but not least, toxic behaviors in the gaming culture online, and why we should improve those. But our first bullet point will be multiplayer reviews. The reason why multiplayer reviews should be updated because multiplayer experiences tend to be dynamic. They don't tend to be static like the campaign. Campaigns will receive maybe a couple stability fixes and maybe a content update where they add some new stuff in the game. But typically that's not the case. Once you see it on campaign at launch, usually what you get. When it comes to multiplayer though, they're a lot more dynamic and they can really change within the first couple of months, honestly, from launch to 6 months to a year out. And of course, some of these games can launch in pretty bad states and they're not worth playing when they first come out. Games like Rainbow Six Siege and Battlefield 4 come to mind. These games weren't great, or they were pretty fucking bad when they launched because they just were unstable, and of course they had some balancing issues and issues with connectivity and netcode. But as the games went on, as patches came out, 6 months, a year down the line, they became quality first-person shooters that you can honestly recommend, and they're still pretty good to this day. And these games have been out for like Battlefield 4 has been out for a long time, and Rainbow Six Siege has been out for over 4 years now. So I think multiplayer reviews should update as these games improve or regress. And that's really all I got when it comes to multiplayer reviews. But video game reviews as a whole have been pretty bad for a while now. I've been aware of this since 2012 with the annual releases of Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, and all the sports franchises getting glowing reviews year in and year out. 8 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s. Even though the best case scenarios these games, they would stay the same for their quality, and the worst case scenario they would regress. And of course the running joke in the gaming community was that these games were the same year in and year out, and we kept buying them, but EA took that to heart, and they literally released the same game twice. Now what game is that? FIFA 13, or FIFA 12, technically on the Wii. Yes, the FIFA 13 port on the Wii was actually FIFA 12. It was identical. The exact same game. At least with other sports releases, there's a roster update. They may change a few things here and there with the gameplay, but when it came to FIFA 12 or FIFA 13 on the Wii, it was the exact same game. That shit's bonkers. And that's how you knew, the reviews were busted. Also, you could talk about how it's like some of these reviewers just didn't know what games they were talking about, or just weren't well versed in the games. And this would be like me not playing racing games and playing F1 for the first time and being like, why is this game so difficult? Why does it have such a steep learning curve? Or if you play Little Big Planet karting and you were wondering why the track creator didn't auto-populate the rest of the environment like you would do in Modern Nation Racers. But you would know that if you played the game because different themes, different developers, and Modern Nation Racers, they had a quick creation tool that just encouraged you to make a good track, and then it will populate it with an environment, compared to Little Big Planet that had a lot more assets, and it would be a lot harder to populate an environment and make a good game. Not a good game, make a good track. And you know this because, well, one, just the money involved with these reviews. Like, there's no way that these sports games could have kept getting 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 for so long. They have corrected this trend recently, like in the last couple of years, but you can honestly say that's because these games have gotten that bad where everyone started to notice. But yeah, video game reviews haven't been the best. And that's because, one, people, paying for reviews, these publishers paying these companies for reviews to get nice scores, and because some of these reviewers just don't know what they're talking about. Some of these games are just not well versed in the games, and that leads to bad reviews as well. But let's talk about marketing and influencers. Yes, you heard me correctly. I mentioned marketing and influencers, and that means my favorite punching bag getting put to good use once again. Cyberpunk 2077. Let's talk about how CD Projekt Red and these online influencers tag team to fuck you gamers over one of the most anticipated releases of all time. Now, the influencers, I'm not too mad at them because it is a good deal, and it is, good business personally for them, because for good reviews or cozying up and building hype with the game, they get goodies from CD Projekt Red, they get inside access to information and footage on Cyberpunk 2077, which leads to a shit ton of views to their channel, and of course they get the golden review copy, and they get the game early. So I can't be too mad at them, but when the game comes out and it's shit, you gotta take a little bit of responsibility for it. That's all I'm saying. But they're just a symptom of the problem. The actual cause and the big issue here is the marketing campaign, because it was relentless. I mean, they would not shut the fuck up about this game. And then they featured high profile celebrity cameos, of course Keanu Reeves being in the game. And another thing that they did, which was real scandalous, was they using their goodwill and reputation throughout the years to cozy up the gamers, cozy up the consumers, and of course provide us with a bunch of good quotes. Let's go off them, shall we? Here at CD Projekt Red, we leave the great to others. It's coming when it's ready. No more delays are happening. It runs surprisingly well. And of course, when shit hit the fan, we're sorry. Our commitment to quality. Please accept our shitty apology. It was bullshit what they did. But alas, let's just get into Toxicity because I'm tired. We have touched up on a lot of topics today, and the final one to conclude this video is Toxicity. I'm tired of motherfuckers acting like there aren't any issues with the way folks conduct themselves online. Like, straight up, some of y'all are fucking weirdos. And I got one good example of this. I have dark humor. My guy, where's the punchline? Where's the setup? What about timing, for fuck's sake?
Listen, you not a different breed, you just different. You're weird. Goofball, fuck is you talking about?
No, you're not different. Your jokes are not different. You're just weird. You're weird, alright? And how many times are gamers going to be embarrassed by these goofies in this community by sending death threats to reviewers, developers, even fucking voice actors for playing a fictional character in a video game? This shit's been going on since 2013 when it comes to death threats to reviewers and developers. Like, what? Like, we're gonna act like this isn't an issue? Or like, oh, it's just a small portion. This shit happens every year with every AAA game or review. All the time. Like, it's an issue. Let's fix it. Let's stop acting like it's not there. And when it comes to in-game behavior, like in the voice chat, how you actually play the game, when it comes to voice chat, don't be a dick. You guys know what trash talk is and what straight up disrespect is. You know the difference. Stop acting like you don't. N-word this, N-word that. That's not trash talk. You're fucking weird. You wouldn't say that shit in real life. Let's get that out the way. And when it comes to you actually playing the game, using exploits, cheating, making Smurf accounts to harass newer or lower skilled players, and then you wonder why nobody wants to play the game or why nobody likes playing with higher skilled players, you're the problem. You're the problem. Why is the game isn't as fun as it used to be? Because you fuckers were toxic and now nobody wants to play it. It's that simple. You don't be a dick in these games, you can foster growth into these communities. It's really that simple. But that's all I've got. We've been on this for over 20 minutes, I believe now. And thank you to the algorithm and y'all, because y'all did hit the subscribe button. We had like a nice bit of growth in these last couple of weeks, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. We'll do a more formal video when it comes to like content we'll make. When it comes to conduct I would like to see if you're going to be watching this channel, because I don't give a fuck if you're being a weirdo. You will get blocked, your comments will be deleted. Like, this isn't a democracy. I run this shit around here. This is my channel, you fucking bozo. But we'll be better on getting these videos out, because I have gotten sidetracked. This video is supposed to come out on Monday. I think it is what, Thursday or Friday, whatever. Yeah, and we'll be better when it comes to getting the 6 days in Fallujah video out, because that shouldn't take long. But we've gotten sidetracked on other projects. We're getting sidetracked right now. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Y'all can leave anything down below, any criticisms, any compliments, whatever. We can improve content and whatnot. I know the mic isn't the best, but I'm working with what I'm working with. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all stay safe, and I'm out.